Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We're going to be talking about procedures to the endocrine system in this video lecture. Table 7.1 gives you all the root operations that are likely to be used on procedures for the endocrine system. This includes such things as change, destruction, division, drainage, excision, extirpation, insertion, inspection, reattachment, release, removal, repair, revision, reposition, and resection. Many times people get confused with some of these, such as with reposition and revision. And the key is to go and clarify what the procedure is. And if you're unclear on which root operation to use, is to go to the appendix in the back of the PCS codebook. Table 7.2 in your text gives you the body parts, and these are familiar to you from anatomy and physiology. These are things like the pituitary gland, the adrenal gland, the carotid, what have you, the parathyroid, the thyroid, all these things. And again, one of the things that is frustrating in people that move from an ICD-9 world coding procedures to ICD-10 PCS was the different approaches. Open means anything that's done through an incision with the scalpel. So by definition, if you think about it, anything where somebody is making an incision on the skin and doing something through that type of approach is an open procedure. Percutaneous is different than percutaneous endoscopic. And again, you can see that in your appendix. The endoscopic is what's used when you're using a scope. We also have devices used with procedures on the endocrine system. These could be drainage devices, monitoring, infusion, other devices, and we also do procedures without any device, which of course would be a character of Z. Table 7.5 also has qualifiers. Many times these are diagnostic. Sometimes we don't have any qualifier at all. When procedures are being done on the endocrine glands themselves, they quite often are excisions, resections, or destruction. With an excision, of course, we're removing part of an endocrine gland. A resection, we're removing all of it. And a destruction, we're destroying it, sometimes by ablation. Many of these glands have laterality, and these will be given to you in the table. When you look at the bottom part of the table, the characters 5, 6, 7, they will call out that body part. So really important to read the procedure note, the op record, if you will, so you can get the correct code. Stereotactic radiosurgery is using gamma beams, particular types, or some sort of other photoradiosurgery to destroy these lesions that sometimes can grow on the endocrine glands. These are coded in the radiation therapy section of the ICD-10 PCS book, and you can find that by looking for these STSs in the ICD-10 PCS section of the book. And that's all I have for you. We'll see you online. Please feel free to email me with any questions or stop by and see me during office hours. Have a good week. We'll see you online. Bye now.